Hey guys, welcome back to the Pharos Fit podcast. Great to be back with you guys. I am here today with Cynthia Velazquez. She is a strength coach, CrossFit coach, boxing coach, and a doula.
Nutritionist, right?
And nutritionist.
Yeah.
We've known Cynthia for a number of years, and her expertise seems to keep expanding into all these different fields. So we're super excited to speak to her about it all. I'm here with Emily as well. Hey, Emily.
Hello. I'm so excited I feel like I've known you for like a decade, Cynthia.
Yeah,
and crazy to think that basic, like a decade and maybe even more than that. So yeah, I feel like you're very much like OG in this space. And so it's fun to know somebody and to watch our paths kind of like, take shape and see where they go, and then to come back and meet up, and we're both spreading the good word. And so it's fun to connect on that.
And just so you guys know, Emily right now is what, 20 weeks?
20 weeks yesterday.
20 weeks through her pregnancy. So this podcast today is very topical for us. We're going to talk about pre and postnatal training and such, and everything that goes along with that. We're going to dive into that a little bit. But first of all, I just want you guys to be introduced to Cynthia. I want you guys to hear a little bit about her backstory, how she got into the fitness space, and how that kind of evolved. So Cynthia, why don't you kind of start from the beginning, wherever you want to start from.
Wherever the beginning is for you.
Yeah, and just let us know how it all began.
I feel like the beginning is, I had a boyfriend, he was running a marathon and he wanted me to run with him, and I couldn't even get around the block, and just feeling so defeated. But I want to say it was a very large block. It was like a studio, or one of the Los Angeles, like Hollywood studios was. So it was pretty big, a big run. Right. But man, I was like huffing and puffing. I couldn't run around the block, and I felt super defeated. I had gained a lot of weight. I was no longer super active. This is somewhere in like my mid-20s. And I just stopped being active. I was eating a ton of food and not exercising much. So I wanted to do something about it. And it's funny because I just remember sitting in my apartment watching The Biggest Loser. And really feeling like, I loved it. I love the passion that these folks like brought to their journey, like how much they were fighting for, they were fighting for their health, their longevity, their families, all of this. And I was just like, if these guys are doing it, then I need to get my ass in shape and do it too. So I actually would work out while I watched the show. That was really the beginning. I would, do sit-ups or squats during commercial breaks. And started to make these little adjustments, and eventually joined a boxing gym. So as a kid, my dad, that's one of the sports he really loved watching, as one of the things that we would do together. Like he would hold up hands for me and I'd punch his hands. So like there was that like love for boxing. I always wanted to do it. So that was where I started. I started in a boxing gym. And, all the super intense cardio, I shed a lot of weight doing that. And also those little tweaks to my diet. Then boyfriend and I moved to West Hollywood, and right around the corner from a CrossFit gym is actually where I met Emily. And so and they were offering a free week, and I found a flyer and I joined. And that's really like where things started to progress a lot more. So I got into CrossFit and strength training. Again,
what year was this?
This was like the first year they opened. I want to say 2010 or 2011, whatever the first year they opened was. I can't remember.
Was that Hollywood or Brick?
Hollywood.
Yeah. Oh no, Brick.
Oh, no, you're right. It was Brick. You're right.
Yeah, in West Hollywood. Yeah. So I joined there and just really loved. Actually, let me take that back. I didn't love fitness to begin with. It was something that grew on me. Right. Yeah, I actually hated it, and would get mad at my boyfriend for going to class when I didn't feel the desire to go. And then one day just was like, you know what? Like, why am I getting mad at him for doing something good? He's doing something to benefit his health. And I'm sitting on the couch judging him. So I decided to just make a commitment to go to the gym for 30 days straight. And that just kind of sparked the habit and made it fun.
That's great. What a great way of doing it. So you made that commitment for 30 days. You went every day for 30 days?
I went every day for 30 days.
That's amazing.
Yeah.
What a great way to do it.
And from there, was working at the gym as a front desk staff, then got into coaching, got certified as a CrossFit coach. And through the years have just, you know, added to my toolbox, I would say. I had a brief like mentorship by a Hollywood like a trainer to like movie stars. And one of the things that stood out to me the most from his mentorship was that he really advocated for me to like get out there and add as much as I could to my toolbox. That CrossFit was great, but I needed to add more to that. And I was like, you're right, I really do. So I went out and got all different kinds of certifications and started to look at training differently. So
and where did that start? Was it like, was it just off of like curiosity and passion, or was it off of like need based off of like where your clients were at and what they needed? So you're like, oh, I need to learn more about this. Like, how did you decide how to expand the toolbox?
Well, it started with him because it was kind of like one of the things he wanted to see. He wanted to see me do more. Like he liked me, my personality. He thought I would be great with clients. He liked the way that I gave instruction and the energy I brought to coaching, but he thought that I still need to learn a little bit more. And so, yeah, I took that advice and I was like, okay, I'm going to learn more. And I'm so glad I did, because I'm a student who loves to learn. Like I'm always, like you said, you've known me for however long, and the things that I do and what I know just keeps expanding because of that desire to like know more. And so, yeah, just started there, got like certified, just a general like NASM certification, did some animal flow, like raw functional movement. And I love movement. I love training. All of it excites me.
Awesome.
Well, go ahead.
Well, I was gonna say, and then you got back into boxing, kind of went full circle, right?
Yeah, I got back.
I think the last time I saw you, you were a boxing coach at one of was it the Floyd Mayweather one, or one of the boxing coaches tonight?
Yeah, I was. So I was. It was a cool experience to be one of the founding like coaches at their flagship gym in Los Angeles. So super cool. I remember the first class I taught, Floyd was there, and it was like the big, I was like, holy shit, I'm teaching a class and Floyd's like right there. And it was really fun.
Was that the year before the pandemic? Or was that?
Yeah, it was 2018.
Yeah, so the year before
2018, a few years before the pandemic.
Yeah. Well, the pandemic started in 2019, right?
No,
I guess so. The end of 2019.
Yeah. No one knew about it. You didn't know about it until 2020. Come on.
Yeah, you didn't know about it until March 2020 is when all the hell broke loose. Damn that COVID. So that's basically, I guess, the gist of it. I've been doing it for a long time. I got certified in CrossFit in 2012. So yeah, 10 years of being a part of this fitness community, learning and growing.
Mm-hmm. And from there, I mean, what do you, before we move on to the doula stuff, what do you do right now to stay fit? Are you still CrossFitting, or what do you do?
No, I don't really do CrossFit, but I will say I still really enjoy a good CrossFit workout, but I'm not in a part of a CrossFit community any longer. I just work out at home in my backyard. And occasionally I might get like this desire to either do some Olympic lifts or do a workout with Olympic lifts.
Scratch
for the most part. Yeah, it's mostly like functional bodybuilding. I do, just typical like back, biceps, upper body.
You're what I call a recovering CrossFitter.
Or a CrossFit graduate, where it's like anyone who's been in it for like, a decade or more, like there are very few that are still like diehard doing it every single day kind of deal, where it's like, yeah, you want to scratch the itch and the workout itself is so like great, but do we need to do it 5 days or 6 days or 7 days a week? Maybe not, and there's so much other movement to explore and enjoy that it's nice to expand your horizons when it comes to movement and all of that.
Yeah, absolutely. I'm also a year into postpartum. So, training just looked very different during my pregnancy, and it's looked different during postpartum recovery, not just the recovery aspect of it, but just the amount of time I have available to train, So some weeks I'm like, ooh, I got like 4 workouts in, I'm super proud. And then other weeks I'm just walking a ton, and that's enough for me, so it kind of fluctuates.
Yeah. And so when you found out you were pregnant, did you specifically make any changes? Did that inspire, getting certified and becoming, more involved in like being a pregnancy and postpartum kind of coach? How did your own athleticism and then coaching change once you found out you were pregnant?
Honestly, it had changed already so much, like the type of workouts I was doing. I was able to pretty much do everything I was already doing without a lot of modification. I just kind of took out crunches, any sort of variation of crunches, sit-ups, things like that. And I wasn't in a CrossFit gym, so I wasn't hanging on bars doing kipping or anything like that any longer, so that I didn't need to tweak that. I wasn't really doing barbell movements. So I didn't need to change from barbell to dumbbells because I had already kind of made that switch.
Right.
Yeah. I think so. For me, the biggest thing that changed was just my kind of core stabilizing exercises, like focusing a lot on like farmer's carries or just like, static holds, things like that, or my breathing strategy.
Totally. Yeah. I think a lot of like, that's always the first thing when you're pregnant, you hear, okay, stop doing core exercises, but that you still need to stabilize, and like back pain is still a thing during pregnancy. So I feel like there's not necessarily a misconception, because like, yes, we stop doing core exercises as like the famous ones, like crunches, sit-ups, hanging leg raises, V-ups, like all of those types of core exercises. But what would you say are your like favorite quote unquote core exercises that you are like prescribing to or in doing yourself in pregnancy and postpartum?
Dead bugs, any sort of variation of dead bugs. What is it? The bear holds. Mm-hmm. Doing offset carries, so a lot of like overhead and down at the bottom, or both overhead, or let's see, I really enjoy doing like around the worlds with the kettlebell. That was really fun for me. For whatever reason, I enjoyed that. But a lot of carries and bear holds, dead bugs, like that's what I was doing mostly.
Very good.
Very cool. So how did the kind of transition start between to becoming a coach, a pre and postpartum coach and a doula? How did that all happen?
Gosh, I feel like it truly is a culmination of just all the years of experience, and then me being pregnant and having my daughter. Again, going back to like the student, and I want to know everything. I want to dive in as much as I can. When I got pregnant, I was just like the student. I wanted to learn everything I could about the process of being pregnant, about labor and delivery. I chose to do an unmedicated birth at home. So I really wanted to be prepared for what that was going to look like and feel like. So, so much went into that, like not just physically and learn. It was like mentally, heart space, like opening up my heart, like really becoming aware of a lot of my fears and beliefs that I had about pregnancy and birth and what that was going to look like. So diving in head first to all of that and being super excited during my pregnancy. There was so much I didn't know that I discovered through the journey, right? And I'm just like, why aren't more women given this information and supported and given the opportunity to tap into their power? Like, shit, man, after going through this, sorry for my language, but after going through that, I'm like, women, birthing people, they are like superhuman, there's like, we create life inside of us, we support life, and we push a baby out of us, or a full-term human comes out and is alive and is a part of the world, and that's just amazing to me. So I just fell in love with that whole journey. And I got such great support through my doula and the midwives that I worked with. It was like a no-brainer to me. As soon as I was done, like my first meeting with my doula, I was like, so I'm really interested in becoming a doula. And she was like, She was so excited. She's like, I think you'd be great.
For people that don't know, because honestly, coming from Britain, I had no idea what a doula was. What is a doula, and what is the role and responsibility of a doula?
The doula is a pregnant person's like support person. Like they are solely responsible for keeping that birthing person supported, feeling loved, safe in that labor and delivery. But even in their prenatals, it's about, you go over their birth plan, you help them decide like what that's going to look like. For a lot of people, you don't really know what birth even is, what the different stages are, what to expect, how to know if you're in labor. You provide that childbirth education ahead of time as well. You explore these different relationships to yourself, relationship with your partner, relationship with your family members, because all of that, is at play during pregnancy and after. So a big part of it was developing a stronger relationship with my partner. Deciding like what's my birth plan. So talking through those things with the birthing person, and then when it's go time, providing that constant support, whether it's emotional or physical, setting the mood for the space, like trying to create the most loving space for the person to give birth in.
And presumably the advantage is with you, because when someone hires you to be the doula, you're also doubling it up as a strength coach / doula. So you can prepare them physically for the birth, help them through the birth, and then train them after the birth. So it's like a triple header.
Yeah, and nutrition too.
And the nutrition too, which we'll get to in a second. Is that how you kind of market yourself, or do you even market yourself, or is it all just?
Yeah, so I changed my handle on Instagram. It's now Built for Birthing, and the idea is that we're built to give birth. We're built to, but then also that also fits into just my background in strength training too. And just, I feel like the years of training beforehand also helped support me in my pregnancy. I didn't really deal with a lot of aches or pains during my pregnancy. I think it had to do with building a strong body beforehand, having already had that. So I want to support people in getting strong and ready beforehand, feeling comfortable and throughout their pregnancy. And then right now I'm actually getting certified through the Body Ready method. And this is looking at the body, the tensegrity. I don't know if you've heard of that, before, this idea that everything is connected. So when something is aching in one point, trying to find the lines of connection in the rest of the body.
Not too dissimilar from anatomy trains and Tom Myers and structural and
absolutely,
and all of that. Yeah, totally.
Yep. So Lindsay McCoy, who created this program, she quotes him a lot. So I'm super excited about that. The little geeky person inside of me, I'm so excited with the curriculum, and to know that I'm learning information that's going to help me support people during labor and delivery. If there's something going on where baby's maybe stuck in an awkward position, knowing different maneuvers to release tissue to help create more space in the pelvis for baby to move and hopefully successfully get through the pelvis.
What would you say, so if someone decides to have an unmedicated home birth, what would you say are some advice or key strategies that maybe worked for you, and things that you recommend people who are looking for that experience, because it isn't easy, and obviously and there's a lot in the world that is that you need a lot of support and a lot of mental toughness, because as soon as it gets tough, it's really easy to just kind of decide to a different route. So if people are really hell-bent on that being their experience, what would you say to help them set them up for success?
Yeah, first I want to say, if someone chooses an epidural or doesn't go that route, I feel that's totally fine too.
Oh, totally. I had a schedule. 10 out of 10 recommend. And across the gamut of ways to give birth, but for those that are really wanting that experience and all of that,
So I think it's important to know how you handle, pain and handle stress like beforehand. So becoming really aware of like, how you show up in those scenarios. So there's a really cool way to do that. There's this, what is it called? Sorry, my mind blanks sometimes when I'm searching for words and I can't find them.
It's all right, we're patient.
An exercise. An exercise.
That is literally me pregnant right now. Is like, what's that word that I use 100 times a day that I can't find on the tip of my tongue right now? Yeah.
Exactly. I'm like, really? That's the word I can't find. So there's an exercise that you can try where you're holding like ice in your hand for like 2 minutes. It's gonna be uncomfortable. You could try different like cryo exercises that kind of like test the limits of you physically to see how you respond. And you can do it a few times to see like, okay, does it help me to have someone talking to me talking to them while I'm feeling this discomfort? Does it help me to visualize instead? So kind of finding what helps you separate yourself from the pain, because the pain is going to be there. It's childbirth. There's going to be pain. But are you able to mentally separate yourself from what's happening physically and go somewhere else and find peace in that place, or be the observer of what's happening, but not actually like sit in the suffering?
Could you do ice baths for that, or is that too extreme?
I don't know if I've never recommended in pregnancy. Yeah. I'd have to look into that.
But I don't think there's been any studies into it, right?
Yeah,
I've
probably
never
not
read anything, but yeah.
I love ice baths. Oh my God. But ice baths are what prepared me, I feel like, for pregnancy. There were several things that I could remember before I got pregnant that helped support me through that experience. So ice baths were one of them. I used to like be unable to sit in a cold ice bath for more than like 5 seconds. Like I'd just be like, I thought my whole body was going to break and die. I was just going to shrivel up and die with the cold. And then I had this experience of just observing other people in ice and being like, well, they're not dying. I was like, well, their limbs are not falling off. And they seem calm and peaceful in there. Like, how is it that they can? So like watching others, so I actually do recommend that people watch birthing videos. People, there's like amazing videos out there where there's people just breathing like that, and baby just like comes out, no problem. That wasn't the case for me. I was screaming bloody murder, but it happens.
What you just said is so interesting, because we always say like, we put ourselves under stress in the gym so that we're better at dealing with stress outside the gym. And I've never heard anybody like talk about it that way when it comes to pregnancy, but that's a really good point. Like, you have to be able to understand yourself and how you deal with stress in those moments. So to create that artificial stress is going to be beneficial for you through pregnancy. That's a great way to look at it.
And remembering, we're calling it having a strategy for, knowing that you've overcome and been through and, endured a lot, and how that happened. You can tap into that power, as you called it, to be able to do that. So that's great. So knowing that it's painful and having a strategy to separate yourself from the pain, that's a great kind of first step. Any other kind of like advice or recommendations you give to women undergoing, really any type of, because it's not like an epidural is a walk in the park either, or anything for that matter, so what other kind of like strategies and recommendations or advice would you give?
So the knowing part, I want to go to real quick. When you are about to transition, when you're about to push, your body is sending out these sort of stress hormones. It's a really beautiful part of like the biology or physiology of like birthing a baby. Those stress hormones are purposeful for a baby, to prepare baby for exiting and being a part of this new world outside of the womb. But for the person who's giving birth, like those stress hormones are also running through you. So you get to the point where you're like, I can't do this. I can't do this. I can't take this anymore. Just knowing that when you get to that part, that's just like the biology doing what it needs to do. Like it's just the part of birth. It's a part of that process. So when you get there, like that was helpful for me to know, like I may get to a point where I'm going to be like, I don't want to do this. I don't want to do this. But knowing that that was just like the normal, like unfolding of birth, right? So when it happened for me, because it did happen for me, I was like, I don't like this. I actually remember saying, oh, I don't like this. I don't like it. But no, like in that moment, even though I didn't like what was happening, just like knowing back there in my head, was like, okay, this is a normal unfolding. It helped to communicate with my partner what my desires were. So that was really clear, you know. We had a safe word. That was something our midwives recommended. So if it really got bad, it's like my word was sprinkles. If I said sprinkles, I wanted either an epidural, I wanted to be transferred to a hospital. Like I was done laboring at home. I was ready for a change. So establishing that with my partner and a birthing team. So if you are choosing to do a home birth, it might be something that your midwives will go over with you anyway. But that was one of them. And I just, I just created a space at home. I had a lot of affirmations up. I meditated a ton throughout my pregnancy. I think it's important to create some sort of ritual between you and baby before baby even arrives. So I would spend a lot of time in meditation, a lot of time talking to her, just kind of feeling into the baby's energy, because there's like, it's incredible. You're so connected, right? When they're living inside of you. So a lot of that helped too. I had pictures of my grandmothers posted. My grandmothers were from rural parts of Puerto Rico. One of my grandmothers birthed 16 babies at home. The other birthed 10. Oh, wow. So 16? I was like really grasping into that like ancestral strength. I was like, wow. Grandmas, you got me. Let's go.
That's awesome. When it comes to strength training, and I know you mentioned a little bit about core before, but were there any like specific strength exercises that you would recommend? I mean that this can be for all kinds of birthing, obviously, but were there any like, you have to do these 5 movements, these are the most important ones?
I really focused on keeping like my posterior chain,
right?
Working my posterior chain. So I did, lunges and deadlifts and hip thrusts, a lot of like rowing exercises for my back to just kind of prevent that rounding forward and just support that. So I would definitely those are things that I would recommend, is just keeping that. Even if somebody hasn't already, I'm going into it already, years in and strong. Right. I think that you can still build strength even through your pregnancy. So if you're someone who hasn't worked out in the past, you can still do that by even incorporating just a different breath strategy, right? Like incorporating your breath with your connecting to your core and building strength there.
And what about things to absolutely avoid? Is there anything exercise, because you hear so much about what you should and you shouldn't do, and you see a lot of CrossFit women like still snatching, still doing all these things like all the way up until birth. Is there anything that in your experience you're like, you know what, I really would avoid XYZ?
I would just avoid anything that's going to put extra pressure on the linea alba. Like you don't want to have that, there's going to be some separation in your abdominal wall anyway, because of baby, but like putting any extra pressure there, I would just avoid doing unnecessary like movements that are going to create that. And also maybe for me, I tried to avoid, exercising to the exertion. Like I was always taking breaks. It wasn't like, I have to be the fastest, I have to do this super quick. It was, I'm going to do my exercises, and when I feel like I'm out of breath, I'm going to pause, I'm going to catch my breath, I'm going to let my heart rate come back down, and then I'll get to the rest when all that's, when my heart rate's down and I'm feeling rested.
Yeah. For me, it's like, it's not that you can't, but should you? Or what's the real advantage of doing this right now?
That really is the huge thing, like the Canver should. And then in Brianna Battle's pregnancy and postpartum athleticism cert, like that's like one of the main principles is that like athlete brain and overcoming that part of yourself that is like, no, I have to push through this and all of that, you know, and like everything that you've been taught pre-pregnancy, you kind of have to like check yourself and unlearn or have a different approach because, you know, like Olympic lifting is a good example. And I love the way Brianna kind of approaches it is like, you spend how many years trying to hone in on your technique to have a straight bar path that goes straight up and down. And then when you're pregnant, then you're like, oh, I'm still going to do it. So I'm just going to let it go up and around and all of that. And then like, so you kind of like ruin your technique on those, you know, on your showing months just for the sake of doing it. And then you have to unlearn those things when you're, you know, so it's not that you can't, but should you, or is there something better? Or is there something that can be more in line with what your ultimate goal is, as opposed to the part of yourself that just wants to say like, oh, well, you know, I can do this. Another good example is like handstands. I know I could not do almost even a down dog. Like I do this yoga, like this on-demand yoga class, like almost every morning. And I'm waiting for the day, because it happened with Wyatt, where I couldn't even do a down dog anymore because like all the blood it was rushing to my brain and it just felt like a lot of pressure there. But I've met some pregnant women who like relieved so much pressure and it felt like their pelvis got a break when they would like go up into a handstand and do all of that. And then some people who are like, oh, well, like this, the demands on your core and your linea alba and the separation that you might get, like, is it worth it kind of deal? And so it's funny because I do feel like there really isn't any absolutes, but you kind of should know that feeling of like, if you're putting intra-abdominal pressure and you're feeling like bulging or rounding or cramping or that you're out of breath, you know, then like those are the signals to be like, listen to your body, and not the listen to your body part of yourself that's like push through all pain, you know, but like the listen to your body that's like, no, actually just listen. And it like, is this nourishing for my body and for my baby, or am I, you know, moving forward with a little bit of ego and thinking that I just, you know, that I can do this because I want to be able to do whatever I have been able to do. Or running, I guess, is another good example.
As well.
Like
I was done with running by then anyway. I had a old hamstring injury, so I wouldn't even think about running. I don't run.
I remember running. And like, I remember doing some light running and even some light jumping. Like I remember, because breathing strategy, we haven't even like talked about that, but like, that's another form of core work. That was what I was going to add on to your core exercises. Like breathing is a form of core work, and navigating, whether you're pregnant or not, you know, navigating your breathing strategies and how to create like intra-abdominal pressure and spread out throughout, as opposed to like coning or like a Valsalva type breathing where you're like, you know, huffing and puffing and push it and like bearing down and pushing out. But I remember like jumping and exhaling through the whole range and feeling really good. And then when I didn't feel good, I just stopped doing it. And I remember running, and it was actually, I think it was like Murph. And I remember Memorial Day, and while we're not a CrossFit gym, there are some like staple CrossFit workouts that we'll do throughout the year. And Murph is one of those on Memorial Day that we do. And I modified everything, you know, I'm doing push-ups on a box and I'm doing ring rows and my air squats. I could squat forever and live in the bottom of a squat. So I love squatting forever. But I remember like our mile run is a loop around Echo Park Lake, which is like beautiful. And so I was like, I'm going to start jogging, because I still felt fine. I think I was like just under 20 weeks. And I started, you know, going and jogging, and I was like, I feel pretty good. I'm going to start walking now. And, you know, just did that. And then on the way back, I like started jogging, and I go, this is the last time I'm running. Yep. This is it. This is it for me. Cause I could feel like, you know, pressure bouncing and bearing down and stuff. So like it's not that you can't, cause I've known women who have ran all the way up and through to, you know, before pregnancy, and then all the way up and through the end. So I feel like it's kind of dangerous to say like, oh, well, don't do this. But if you have the strategies to like actually honestly, authentically listen to yourself and to know what is like nourishing for your body and what is just kind of like working against like what you'll have to undo later, basically, is a good kind of a gauge of what you should be doing, you know?
Absolutely. Yeah. And and I think it also benefits like becoming aware and more in tune with your body and how it's responding or what it's doing, whether it's exercising or even just tuning in to what it needs nutritionally. All of that supports you in birth. Like the more you can be in tune with yourself, the more you're going to be in tune with the process of labor. You know, you're going to intuitively know like how you need to move your body or what you know, what your body and baby like need to be doing together in that process of like a birth. So I think, practicing that early on during the prenatal time is going to benefit you when it comes down to labor and delivery.
So once you've gone through the prenatal process, you've gone through the birthing experience, how soon after the birth do you start any kind of like strength training usually, or what does that look like?
I mean, they'll say 6 weeks for that, but I honestly feel like, again, like tuning in to how you feel. Like at 6 weeks, I wasn't ready. I tried a workout and I was like, no, I was still kind of bleeding a little bit. I think women have to remember it's easy to forget that we've just delivered a placenta that's like the size of a plate, right? And that's an organ that was attached to our uterus that is now gone, and there's a wound that needs to heal. And because that wound isn't visible on the exterior, I think women feel like they could just go about like their normal routine quickly after giving birth. And you got to remember there's a wound that's healing. And so like giving yourself the appropriate time to rest and heal, I think is super important. You know, the first 2 weeks, just lay low, like stay in bed. It's hard. You're going to want to like move around and do all kinds of things. But if you can stay in bed in or around it for at least 2 weeks, and then introduce maybe walking afterwards, you know, light walking. I remember I got caught up by my midwives because I was maybe 2 weeks postpartum, and I went for a pretty long walk. I had done just a little circle around the complex I live in, and this day it was like, okay, let's go for a longer walk. And I remember on the way back, it wasn't even a mile. On the way back, I was on the struggle bus, like I was moving slow, like, everything was just like, why did I do this? And sure enough, like the next day I had a huge like blood, ball of blood come out of me. And I like text my midwives, hey, should I be concerned? Because it was about a golf ball size. And they say if it's bigger than a golf ball, like let us know. So this was about a golf ball size, like ball, blood clot that came out. And they're like, what did you do yesterday? I was like, I went for a walk. They're like, hey, we need you to just chill. Like, just don't do so much. So after that, I was like, okay, I'm going to take it easy. I did at 6 weeks, try to do a workout that was a bit more intense and involved like the assault bike and like lunges. And I just didn't feel right. Like my hips were super unstable and, my core was still really weak. And so I think it was more around month 3 that I felt better. I felt more stable doing exercises. And that's when I got into more regular training at around 3 months.
So I guess it's kind of, the answer is it's kind of different for everybody. Like you said, you have to just listen to your own body and just see how you feel and start when it's right for you.
Mm-hmm. Absolutely. And when you start, like, give yourself that time, like work on connecting to your core again. You gotta remember everything's just been separated, right? And it's all finding its way back together again. So taking your time with it. Mm-hmm.
So let's talk about nutrition. Obviously nutrition plays a huge part in this whole thing. Are you prescribing anything out of the ordinary for pre and postnatal, or is it just focusing more on just getting some good nutrients into the body and in the general like scope of things, or what does your nutritional planning look like?
Yeah, definitely eating enough, like eating enough, like a balanced food. You know, it's not, I wouldn't say it's
not
super,
just cereal.
Yeah, exactly. Like getting enough protein. It's so important to get enough protein, and just like a variety of colorful vegetables and leafy greens, you know. I think overall that's how I coach people in general, you know, whether you're pregnant or not. But in pregnancy, you can lose your appetite, you know, maybe you only crave one thing. And I don't want to make that like, it's not wrong. Sometimes those cravings are exactly what baby needs. Like maybe they need a bit more iron. So you're like craving like meat, you know. It just kind of depends, but overall, like remembering that you're building a human, so trying to connect that again, anytime you can connect to baby, I think in the process helps. So if you can imagine as you're eating whatever you're eating, if it's like strawberries or a piece of salmon, that baby's down there just munching down on strawberries and salmon with you, you know, like if you can visualize the food actually supporting the growth of your baby, it might encourage you to eat a little bit more, or to be more mindful when you are eating. That was actually something.
Sorry, I was going to say, do you find most of the women that you're kind of dealing with, you need to encourage them to eat more, as opposed to like anybody who's like eating too much and you're having to like pull back a little bit? Is it mainly your job is to make sure they're eating enough good nutrients as opposed to restriction kind of thing? Or?
Yeah, I think so. I think like there's just in general, pregnancy or not, like women have bought into this idea that they have to eat like 1,600 callars, you know. They're a lot of times just under eating, you know, or they say, I eat a lot, I eat so much, I'm always eating, but like it's like they're eating salads. It's like, yeah, but the food you're eating doesn't have a lot, it's not calorically dense, so you're not actually getting a lot of energy. So yeah, I think what I've seen mostly, the person thinks that they're eating enough, and then when we actually take a closer look, they're not eating enough. So it's like, how do we add to what you're already doing? Whether it's like, let's just, you know, add another scoop of nut butter to your smoothie to make it
it's interesting because we're doing the Limitless Challenge right now, and it's the same thing with anybody on who is like taking a good look at their diet. It's like, as soon as they start actually looking at how much protein is in their day, they realize how deficient they are, because they're so far off. It's like, oh, I thought I was eating enough protein, but like once you actually start looking at the numbers, it's like, oh my God, like it's like less than half of what I should be having. And it's a real kind of like wake up call. So I'd imagine, you know, during pregnancy, obviously that's threefold, because you're only eating for yourself anymore, you're eating for your baby. So those things get even more important. So to be aware of, you know, nutrients and how many nutrients do I really need to not only for myself to thrive, but for my baby to thrive is a huge, you know, such a huge part of it.
Yeah, and in the beginning, it's not like you have to add that much more calories. I think towards the end, especially in that third trimester where baby's like growing exponentially, like every week, you want to be mindful of getting enough. In the beginning, it's just eat. And for some ladies, they're nauseous and they have no desire. They have absolutely zero appetite. And at that point, I'm not going to be like, did you eat all the, you know, did you eat protein, this and that? No, I'm just going to be like, are you eating? Are you getting calories in some form, however you can? And yeah, you just gotta have grace on yourself also in that early part. It's like, goodness gracious, the transformation that you go through, right? I mean, Emily, you're at halfway point. How are you feeling?
First trimester, nausea to the max, and like, you know, throwing up, doing the whole thing, taking stuff for it, and trying to get my B12 and all that kind of stuff, B6 vitamins and all that kind of stuff going on. And then second trimester transitioned into the headaches and the sciatica. And I got I have horrible varicose veins, and so like a lot of like itchiness around those and stuff. And so it's always so funny because I don't like to, like, I try not to complain because it's like, oh, it's this beautiful, you know, this like amazing transformation and all of that. But it is like funny how the symptoms, you know, transition. They're like, oh, it's great because you're out of the nausea phase. And I'm like, yep, traded it in for the headaches and the sciatica, baby, you know, and all that. Like it really just morphs into what it is. I know for my last pregnancy, I got cholestasis at the end, which for those that don't know, it's basically massive itching all over your body caused by your kidneys and your liver not functioning properly. So your bile acids rise to the surface right underneath your skin, and you just like want to itch yourself out of your body. And so, yeah, I always say like my body does not necessarily like being pregnant, but like what you were talking about earlier, like not everything that is awesome, like it can still be awesome and be uncomfortable, you know, like, and training is a great example of that, you know, where it's like, you know, you're lying down in a pool of sweat and you're like, you just had like the worst workout of your life and you're like, God, I feel amazing, you know, and so I kind of feel a little bit like that. Like pregnancy is by no means fun for me. I do not enjoy being pregnant by any means. I think the most fun part is like when you start to feel like kicking and excitement and like flutters and all of that kind of stuff, knowing that like, you know, it's happening. And you have a much more of like that tactile relationship with your baby. I think that is like, you know, the part that I look forward to the most and all that. But otherwise, yeah, I'm very sympathetic to women who are miserable during pregnancy. So I'm like, I feel you, girl. I feel you. I always used to joke because the amount of women that have come up to me and been like, you know, it's such a shame that you're so uncomfortable being pregnant because I was pregnant and I just loved every minute of it. And I just really felt like this incredible thing was growing inside me. And I'm like, good for you. I'm very happy. I'm so happy that was your experience. You know, and it's just funny because you know, every person is different, and every like baby is different, and every, you know, like I remember with Wyatt, I could not eat protein at all, and like all the way through, like not even just in the beginning, like I just had no taste for meat and no taste for like vegetables, like or like raw, like salads, anything like that. Vegetables like needed to be cooked and stuff like that. And now it's funny because in this pregnancy, I am like, you know, I can't eat enough meat and I'm like all about the salads and all about that kind of stuff. And so it's fun to see how things, you know, shift and change. And it, you know, the body is a truly incredible thing, what it can endure and put up with, for lack of a better term, in order to make life happen, you know?
Cynthia, in the postpartum phase, does nutrition look any different, or are you kind of like describing the same things? Is it the same kind of battle, or?
Well, the first, like immediately after giving birth, you could do more nourishing foods. You know, you're losing a lot of blood. So just foods that are going to nourish and kind of like warm the body. Right. There's a great book called The First 40 Days, I believe. And it's all just kind of, it's all like recipes for those first 40 days after giving birth to just like replenish, like, and really nourish mom. So kind of like fatty, like foods that just like ghee, like just super rich foods would help, but not everybody's going to do that. But it's out there, it's recommended, you know, like I took that approach during my postpartum. Like I had a doula coming in and she was cooking some really nourishing foods for me. And then when she wasn't here, my partner was, and we kind of like, we planned all of that out beforehand. And I'd say that it helped a ton. And I don't know, it probably helped too with like my milk supply, just like having, you know, eating nourishing foods during pregnancy and immediately after. Yeah,
I mean, there's nothing more important than food, right? Because that's what's sustaining life. That's what we eat to survive. That's what we eat to thrive. Everything we put in our mouth is a drug, so it's going to affect you in some way. So it is something that people really need to pay attention to, like all the time, and especially pregnancy
and postpartum, because like that moment
right.
that your baby is no longer attached to you, and like, you know, the food goes to your baby first in most ways, like before you even get the nutrients, you know, it's like a direct line. So when you're when it's earthbound, you know, it's a lot more important that you're thinking about like, okay, how is the food that I'm eating then going to translate to my milk supply and all of that stuff, right. if you're breastfeeding.
Well, because when we work out last, like the more stress you put on your body, the more quality nutrients you need to get into your body, and you've just put yourself through the most stressful experience you could possibly have, and in that process, of course, lost a lot of blood, like you said. So yeah, like replenishing those nutrients and getting a lot of good stuff into your body, to me, must be, you know, of primary importance.
Yeah, it was for me, and it was something I made sure to like plan beforehand. Yeah.
What about
and now these days I'm just like eating blueberries and all like the little things, like all the things that my daughter is eating, but I try to cook for her the same way that she eats what I eat, you know, but I have to be like really on top of it with myself now, because it's so easy to just snack on things. So part of like, you know, like that self-care and postpartum is like making sure I'm eating enough.
How old is your daughter now?
She's 1. She just turned 1 on the 11th.
Yeah, I saw your Instagram post. So
we found that because in the beginning, Wyatt basically shared meals with Emily, and they just ate the same thing all the time. As they get older, it's like they get exposed to like snacks and like chips and like these kind of snacky foods that you don't really want them eating, but it's kind of like unavoidable. So you spend your time trying to balance, like make sure he gets some good nutrients in, and then like you're gonna have to cave a little bit on ice cream and like jelly babies and like
bombas. Bombas or little puff snacks.
It's like you find yourself negotiating a little bit as much as you kind of like, and then you feel guilt because you're like, oh my god, am I being a bad parent? Is he gonna get addicted to this junk food? Is he gonna get diabetes? Like you get all these things
the poor rabbit hole.
It's definitely a bit of give and take.
Yeah, it is funny because Wyatt used to literally, once he was, you know, and we did baby-led weaning, so he was eating solid foods and, you know, would have like pork chops and be like gnawing on pork chops with a couple teeth kind of deal, and was like, you know, into that. And we had meal delivery service with Catered Fit, and so we would he'd have a meal and I'd have a meal kind of deal. But then now that he's like older, it's funny, like every meal I feel like something new happens. Like we just had like Asian and my favorite like broccoli beef, and he loves rice. And we had fried rice, and because the fried rice had carrots in it and it changed the texture of the rice, he was like, ooh, icky rice. And it's like just funny how it's like, but you ate this last week, like you literally just ate this. And now like their brain, like, you know, wants to have opinions about things and notices like differences and textures and all of that and kind of stuff. So it's just really funny to watch.
Well, the problem is they develop the power of choice.
Is that a problem?
when they're young enough, they don't have any choice. They just eat whatever's in front of them. But once they realize they do have choice, it's like, no, I'm eating that. No, I'm eating that. It's like, it's definitely.
I'm going through it now. She's 1 and already super vocal about what she likes and what she doesn't like. It's
a fun thing. And then like, all those things I'm sure you've experienced and felt them, but it's like I'll never, like when I'm going to be a parent, I'll never insert whatever it is here. And then you're like, nope, totally doing that. Like, we went through sleep training because there was a time when we were moving and in between spots. And so he was sleeping in the bed with us because he didn't have his own room. And then getting out of that was like a process. And then it went into potty training, of course. And so like, we're like, oh, we'll never like positively incentivize like snacks and like gummy bears and ice cream. And then now it's like, you went pee-pee on the potty, you get a popsicle, you know, it's like, you just can't help it. And the problem is that it totally works. He'll like sit and he's like, Mom, I went pee-pee on the potty. Are you proud of me? I get a popsicle now. And it's like, you know, you're like, yeah, son, you get a popsicle.
Whatever you want, just keep peeing in that potty.
I'm hoping to
keep making us proud.
I'm hoping to switch it to pull-ups soon. You want pee-pee in the potty? Great, you get 5 pull-ups.
Yeah. My partner is he's very strict on like food stuff. He's a vegan. I was vegan for a little bit, and I went during pregnancy though. I really craved eggs and salmon, so I broke away from that, and now I'm back to eating all the things. But my partner is vegan, and he's very he cares about all the foods that she's going to be eating, and he reads all the ingredients, and he's very, very strict on those things right now. He doesn't even like the bombas that much. I'm like, but they're just a little puff snack.
I know, it's such a hard thing though, because like you realize as you grow, like as they're growing, you're growing, and you're becoming less like stringent and strict, because like there's just a give and take, so it'll be interesting to see kind of how he grows in that, and how things shift there. Cause I remember being like, we'll never give him gummy bears. And now we're like on a 3-hour drive going back and forth to LA and Idlewild. And we're like, here's some gummy bears, and it's just like what ends up happening,
What about, we didn't really talk about supplements. What about supplements during this whole process? What are your kind of like go-tos?
Honestly, I don't do a lot of supplementation. I took a prenatal vitamin. When I was vegan, I was taking like an omega, like a seaweed omega-3 and B12. So I was supplementing with that. But now that I'm eating all of the things, I'm not really doing that anymore. If you already mentioned B6, if you're feeling a lot of nausea, that is one of the things I would recommend. It helps. It seems to help. Or just eating small meals like every several hours can help with nausea too. But I just take a prenatal. I still take a prenatal, and that's it. I've never really been big on supplements.
I got the prenatal. I got the omega-3. I take rutin, which is really great for liver and kidney stuff. I've had rhabdo before, and all of that. So I feel like I kind of have a predisposition to that. And then the itchiness in the blood flow and the varicose veins and all of that. So I did some research. Now, of course, it's worth noting, Peter, that the FDA doesn't approve supplements. So therefore all supplements are said to not take during pregnancy, but it's like very, very, very common. Like even
prenatal supplement, right?
I don't know how they got through, but like even little things like the BCAAs, it says don't take while pregnant. Some protein powders, it says don't take while pregnant.
FDA is the worst. Meanwhile, they'll approve baby powder that's got arsenic in it. Fuck the FDA.
You heard it here, folks. I just wanted to broadly state that, because I know people may be listening and then being like, wait, I should do, other than a prenatal, like, are you allowed to take supplements? And it's like totally, under recommendation, there are very few supplements that are like quote unquote recommended, to take during pregnancy.
I'm diving into some like herbal, like more homeopathic things, as I'm like expanding stuff for doula services. So trying to get into more of that, like looking at homeopathic treatment versus
very cool.
Cool. So when we have you back on the podcast, the next time around, you can tell us a lot more about that.
Cynthia, what's the best way for people to reach out to you, to get hold of you, to learn more about you? Do you have a website or?
I do. So it's www.builtforbirthing.com, and then my Instagram handle is the same, Built for Birthing. You can also email me at cynthia@builtforbirthing.com.
Amazing. Well, thank you so much for being on the podcast. It was great to talk to you. This is a ton of information that people are going to find really useful. So thank you so much. We have a really strong kind of like family community at the gym, and a lot of people have kids. So
or want them.
And in our broader community as well. So it's a really useful topic, and thank you for sharing all your knowledge. And we wish you the best of luck with it, and let us know if we can help in any way, because we'd love to support you in your journey, obviously. And
thank you.
We'll connect again soon.
Absolutely. It's so good to be on the call with you guys.
Yeah, awesome. Thank you so much, Cynthia. That's it for today, guys. Thank you so much for listening. Thank you to Cynthia. Thank you to Emily. Lots of good stuff in today's podcast. We'll be back next week. And don't forget, if you're on the Limitless Challenge, you're doing great. Keep going. 1316 Glendale Boulevard is the gym. We are open. We open at 6. We close at 9. Everything done at the gym right now. Come check it out. It's rocking. It's awesome. Opening a new gym in Idlewild. I'm going to try and get it open by Thanksgiving. Emily thinks I'm crazy. Definitely be open by January at the latest.
You can't see the look on my face right now for most of you, but as you can imagine, it's the okay face.
But yeah, I ordered all the equipment. It's going to be an awesome little gym. So come check that out. And yeah, stay tuned. All right, guys. Until then, take care. See you later. Bye.